All right, so we're live. Welcome to the Conscious Living Show on YouTube. We're looking forward to having some people pop in tonight. We have a fun topic for you. We're going to get our Instagram ready to go here. So we're going to go live on Instagram and our YouTube, and we're live on Instagram too.
Hey, dear.
Hey, we're multitasking.
Ho, ho, ho.
You call me ho?
Absolutely.
I own my ho. Here's the ho-hos.
Man's best dream.
Yeah. All right. Cheers. So here's the Conscious Living Show for the winter solstice.
Mm-hmm.
So, congratulations. We've made it to the shortest day of the year
and the longest nights.
Oh yeah, that's true. And Mark and I always get excited at this time of year because now the days start getting longer again, and we always look forward to the longest day of the year.
Well, you have to embrace. You can't really change how long the days are.
You can't?
No.
I keep trying.
Otherwise, it gets kind of depressing. I mean, you go to Jamaica and it's 12 hours. So if you go in the summer, you get shorted sometimes.
Oh, okay.
You go in the winter, you get longer day.
Okay.
Simple as that. But so the topic today is
selflessness.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Especially this time of year with the holidays. We always start to feel a little bit more aware of all of the people around us and how they've helped us, and like to show our appreciation. That I like the concept too of paying it forward.
Yeah. Paying it forward is a beautiful way to honor people that have helped you by helping people in the future. So, if it's like giving a hand up rather than a hand out, and helping to lift people up in their lives, and even if they don't know it's you, it still can feel pretty good. So, what does selflessness mean to you? When I say the word selfless, what does that conjure up for you? Let's see if we have any comments.
Well, I think it is exactly that. It's when you're feeling like you would like to make somebody else happy and not have any expectations in return. It's you often say most of the things that we do are motivated by our own self-interest, and so you'd like to get to a point where you just do something for the sake of doing it. I think people that give anonymous gifts are way ahead in terms of selflessness, although it's still going to make them feel good to have done that. But that's what you want. You deserve to feel good if you're helping other people.
Well, and I think that I always say that there's no such thing as unselfish giving. There's always something that comes back to you, and we know that giving of yourself and selfless service or random acts of kindness, all kinds of ways you can put it, those things actually can lift our own spirits in ways that I don't think anything else can.
Well, and I think if it makes you feel good internally and you keep that to yourself, that's good. If you start saying, "Hey, look at me, look what I've done," then you're not necessarily being selflessness for what you've done, but for the notoriety of having done it. And that's another level. That's a little different.
And a selfless act has no expectation back.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I was talking to someone the other day about if you give advice, we those of us who have adult children know that giving advice to adult children is tricky to begin with. And generally, it's probably best to wait for them to ask for it, or if they start talking, to give them an out. Do you want me to just listen, or you want me to give you some advice? But giving advice needs to be looked at as a gift. So if you did something nice for someone, or you gave them something that you felt that had value, you give that to them, and then you detach from it. What they do with it, how they use it, you don't monitor that. Because you gave that to them. And you've always talked about this. If you loan friends money, or you loan family money, you really have to look at it as a gift.
That's self-defense.
That's self-defense, right?
That way you don't feel bad.
Yeah.
You don't want to be disappointed if it's a close friend, and you wouldn't be giving it to them if you didn't know that they really needed it. So it all works out. It's this time of year, and also with all that's going on, there's a big disconnect. Um, we're sitting here at home, comfortable in our home, and other people are wondering if they're going to be out on the street at the end of the month.
Right.
So there's a big disconnect in terms of how different families are doing. So when you start to do something helpful for them, and they haven't asked that, it can feel quite good. We were watching a show. These people were making lasagna, and they made it for a few friends, and then a few more friends, and now it's a huge movement to make lasagna, and the people that are participating are feeling just as good. And you can lead by example. I think that's what that lady did. And
Yeah.
and once her daughter jumped in and started helping her, and she's pretty young, she's feeling good. She doesn't really even know why, but lead by example, and people will follow, but don't have the expectation that they will.
Somebody just mentions about codependency and how that would fit in. How do you think that fits into selfless acts?
Well, that gets tricky, I think. Is that what you're thinking?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think again, you can't have the expectation for something back.
Right.
Your reward is knowing that the person is happier, not how it affected you. And I think that's what has to happen. Otherwise, the codependency can become quite destructive. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, intention. We talk a lot about intention in yoga and in really my work, your work as a physician. It's like when you go into an experience with another human being, really clear up your own intentions. What do you hope to accomplish with that? And I know that selfless acts are probably one of the best antidepressants, because it opens your heart to really to start to look for areas of need. And so if you can do that with the intention being that you're not only fulfilling your own feeling of worth and value and having something to give the world, but that you might make somebody's day a little brighter. But even if you don't make their day brighter, you had pure intentions. And you don't have the expectation that you're going to fix somebody, or they're going to do something in return for you. That's where we really have to let go of any expectation in a selfless service.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And I think with this COVID pandemic,
Uh,
we've learned more than ever how important our social connections are. Um, they really are crucial. None of us are doing very well being isolated, or not being able to just being spontaneous, going over and seeing a friend, and feeling, in my case, I feel like I might contaminate them because I sat in a room 15 minutes the other day with a person who had COVID, and I'm all protected, but those things aren't foolproof. So it has an effect, and we've learned that our social connections are very critical for us and our well-being. So the next step is to maximize those social connections, and not to struggle with them. And that fits right into the conscious living concepts of being very conscious about how you approach your friendships. I've always been amazed at how well received it is when I let a close friend know that he's a close friend. I say, gosh, we are enjoying a great friendship, and it makes a difference. You can know that it's there, you can feel it, but saying it out loud to that person spontaneously can mean all the difference.
Truly, and you really are a great example of a man who's very comfortable having really loving, supportive, deep, meaningful friendships. I mean, your guy friends, you don't, there's no fear of expressing that you really care about this person and they mean a lot to you. You know, I think
Right.
that's really
Right.
important.
Right. And we each have each other's backs,
Definitely.
and yet there isn't an expectation.
Right.
It's just knowing when it's needed.
And they're not high maintenance. I think that's the other thing.
No.
Right? There's no high maintenance. So in selfless acts, how can you find that selfless part of yourself if you feel like you've lost it? Because I'm seeing right now in the world a segment of the population that seems to be more selfish and less selfless. For example, that we can get a little political here, but the masks. You know, people who have politicized masks, who view it, who've taken the stance that somehow it's offending their right, right to freedom. It's like there's no. I'm having trouble understanding how you could be not considering the impact that this is going to have on other people.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know that I can explain that other than people are I lost that train of thought. I think people are just it is a protest. It is saying that you can't make me do this, and they get stubborn even though it might protect them and their family. I mean, people who don't wear masks also don't wear masks at home when they're sick.
Right.
And I see this, and it echoes through the home. And person A gets sick, and then a week later, person B, and a week later, person C. And some employers are very strict, and it's hard for those people to get back to work because there's always someone sick in the home as it pops through the house, and they don't isolate and they don't wear a mask. Not that that would be easy to do, but they don't try.
It seems like it would be easier than trying to take off 6 weeks of work, without pay.
Right. No, I mean that stubbornness has kind of caught us by surprise, and it would be nice to be able to move through these days fighting this COVID infection together.
Yeah. So if we can't find selflessness, I think one of the things that I've noticed is that people develop a little bit more of their selfless muscle when something impacts them personally or close to them. For example, we can stay on the COVID theme. There's a lot still the hoaxers and the naysayers that COVID's really happening until it happens to them and they get so sick they're in the ICU, or until somebody they actually know dies. Then that now all of a sudden they're realizing, like Chris Christie, for example, now he's coming out saying, oh my God, I was in ICU for 7 days. And, for all of us on the outside of the hospital, 7 days in ICU doesn't seem like that big a deal. Let me tell you, that's 7 24-hour days that you are not sleeping, you're being disrupted, you are thinking you're going to die. That's a lot of hours and minutes to spend in ICU. And so he had a lot of time to think about his behavior. And now he's saying, it was really foolish for us not to wear masks at the White House.
Well, it's hard to see this pandemic. A lot of people get sick and recover just fine. It seems like it's taking 2 to 3 weeks, but they recover, and so they're saying all of this for that, but they're not paying attention to the fact that the hospitals are filling up, and it doesn't take too long to see a YouTube of an exhausted healthcare worker, for sure. I think with selflessness, the first thing is you gotta know yourself, and you gotta be strong internally, and but the act of being selfless can help get you back to that.
Yeah.
And it can be as simple as baking cookies or making a lasagna for somebody, or just telling somebody that a while back they did something that made you smile.
Yeah.
And of course my job is to make Nancy laugh. Otherwise she gets way too serious. starts to get ulcers and sweat and have anxiety spells. So,
I do not. I've only had one anxiety spell, and that was the night we thought our house was going to burn down. So I was justified.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, we were out of town, and Chuck came over to our house, put sprinklers, wet down the palapas, and really made sure best he could that our house was safe. He took extra effort to do that. This is the same man that 20 years ago, about 20 years ago, when our son lost his mother, his birth mother, my son came back from college, and Chuck, he was a little lost, and Chuck gave him a job, and I don't think that there was anything more important for him to be doing, but to have some structure in his life and to work. And I was not able to help in that way. Chuck didn't hesitate, gave him a job, never forget him for that.
Yeah.
And
truly selfless things.
He didn't skip a heartbeat on that one. And so, your friends are important to you, so you do need to be there for them, and vice versa. And that helps. But you can also just be anonymously selflessness and do something for somebody. Try it.
And
Makes your heart smile.
I think right now, with people being more isolated and more loneliness is at an all-time high, and isolation, reaching out to any kind of group that's doing beneficial, like the woman that started making lasagnas for families, because right now we have more hungry people in the United States than we've had probably since the Depression. So it's, there's a lot that we can do to help other people. And so reach out and find a way to reconnect your human muscle to the heart, and to doing some kind of service, whether it's helping reading with a child online that's struggling with their reading and their parents are working and exhausted. There's so many ways that we can help other people that lift our own spirits. And I do believe that getting out of your own head about what you're not getting or what you're being told you can't do, getting out of that and deciding what you can do and how you can help really does shift your consciousness.
Absolutely. Yeah. Where I'm really selfless?
Sex.
Boy, I couldn't even get to the punchline.
I just read your face.
I was going to see how that played out. telling my partner that I'm very giving in that selflessness.
But you are. I feel like a total hog. I hog all the pleasure.
No,
I think that's good, right?
Yeah, totally selfless.
It's all for you, baby.
For you, yeah. So it's okay if you get something back in return for what you do. That's what encourages us to do it again. And I can tell you, it's 100 times, feels 1,000 times better than being angry, mad, or mean.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
One of the downsides to selflessness that I've seen in people who are unable to create boundaries around it is that they can become very resentful because it's easy to take advantage of somebody who's very selfless, right? Everybody asks them for donations. Everybody asks them to give something, and they're usually not very good at asking back for what they need. And oftentimes what happens is they start to become angry and resentful that people are always taking from them. They would just like to have somebody offer them something. And so if you have a friend like that who's super giving and getting a little pissed off about it, flip the switch for them. Do something nice for them without them asking, without them having a need. Look for some way that you can give to them and help remind them that it's a circle, that what they're giving out is going to come back to you. Sometimes that doesn't work out. We've said, you will be rewarded in a higher place. whatever that means. Like it may not happen right now, but at some point, life is a yin yang balance.
I think if we have Christmas holidays, and that's, part of the reason why we brought up this topic.
Yeah.
But I think it's a year-round concept, and look around and see what people, need, what the people that you might have a little better idea of what they need, and just spontaneously try to help them meet that need if you can, and it'll bring out the smiles. And sometimes it can be even a little kidding. My dad, for years, he had his own ideas about how we should dress and what we should do, but he always worked outside, and should have seen his face when I bought him a pair of blue jeans.
He'd never had blue jeans.
He didn't know what to do with them, and so they sat in the drawer for quite some time, and then they finally came out, and then he used them, and he discovered what blue jeans are about. Kind of,
that's funny,
yeah. But the point is that it just seemed like a good thing to do for him, out of the blue, and so we got him some blue jeans, and they're not expensive, not difficult. Sometimes I feel a lot of pressure around the holidays, and that's a little bit harder for me. It's harder to kind of come up with something that somebody needs. But year round, it's a lot easier. It's easier to see what might bring a smile to a person's face.
Well, you're giving year round, so we cut you a lot of slack.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned losing yourself. I'd like you to speak to that a little bit. Losing yourself in the selflessness. Does that fit into the resentment part, or what were you thinking when you said that?
Well, I was thinking about how if you're giving, and then you're wanting and waiting for something to happen for you. So again, having any expectations back, it just doesn't work out at all for
Right.
Selflessness. You should have, this is a great way to work on being non-judgmental. You can give advice. Most of the time, people won't take it. A lot of times, with our family, 6 months later, they'll go, wow, you know what? That was a pretty good idea. But it wasn't right away that they would realize that was significant. So if I had if I was waiting to be happy because I gave them advice and said, oh, wasn't that a great advice? I can't depend on that for myself.
Well, the whole thing about advice, and I think that we can do a whole other show about that, but a lot of people think if I give you advice, you're asking me to tell you what to do and you're just planning to do it. And that is a complete misunderstanding of what even a person asking for your advice
Let me give you some advice about that.
Yeah. So, we really cannot have any expectation that a person's going to change anything based on what we say.
Yeah.
That's the first rule of advice. And oftentimes when you share your ideas with another person, if they've asked you, and then you just drop it and let it go, they can ponder it. Now you've planted a seed perhaps for them to think about and add to their thoughts that they're already having. And oftentimes they might just tweak their decisions a little tiny bit based on your input. It's just another perspective. And there's no factual stuff. I just said this to somebody the other day. There's no way possible for us as adults to know what's best for another adult. Ever. It just isn't. So if we can pretend we know what's best, we can assume, we can project. The reality is we cannot know. We can just offer our thoughts and ideas. But if we can do it in a more general way, a thought or idea, then we can let go of whether they do anything with it or not.
This is why at the end of at the end of every show, you say, "Are you an example or a warning?" And sometimes the best you can be is an example. I think selflessness is a paradoxical term, just to kind of start to summarize, because it's something that we do without the intention of having something back, and yet it does make us feel very good inside. And it's just unexplainable that way. But try it and keep going with it, not just on Christmas and special occasions, but when you see a need, when you see something that's going on, and there's a lot of need out there now,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who are struggling. If you have a restaurant friend, order some carry out for them. Maybe that isn't exactly what you intended for dinner, whatever, order it and help them through their struggles. But not that way. It's not a gift. It's work, and that will make that person feel useful and helpful, and
Definitely.
go from there. So we have to spend our money now to help other people continue to survive.
And I think that, making other people feel dependent on us or creating that codependency, that's an unhealthy version of thinking we're being selfless, thinking that trying to, sugarcoat us wanting to be needed in a package that we sell as selflessness. We have to be really careful about that, because it is nice to be appreciated. It's different to be needed. And when we set ourselves up to need to feel needed, now we want somebody else to be a little bit suppressed or a little oppressed so that they need us. And that dependency builds a whole nother cascade of emotional toxicity in relationships. So just be much more conscious about your own intention when you want to do a selfless act. If you want to give something, a week or so ago, we were out of town and we had packages delivered to our front porch, and somebody came up on our front porch and stole our packages.
We had a pirate.
At night. We had a porch pirate. And I found out later, based on our neighbor who also had a camera out front, that he rifled through everything, found 2 things that fit him, and went off with clothing. And my first response was I felt very violated. I was pissed that somebody stole stuff from us. It's Christmas gifts for people. It's like, you go to that entitled thing. Then when I found out that he changed his clothes and he put these clothes on and left after rifling through everything, I thought, if he'd have just, of course I wasn't home, but if he'd have just knocked on the door and said, I'm cold and I need warm clothes, I would have just given him some clothes. So I think we have to be careful that, when we're stealing, that perhaps we should ask first.
Well,
and see and allow people to give. In India they say take help. So,
but that's also harder to interpret when somebody's asking, if we're talking about selflessness.
Mm-hmm.
But I think where this helped you is that it helped you interpret your feelings, having to deal with it first, feeling violated,
Right.
and then turning it into, well, if he needed it more than I did because it was my gifts,
Yeah.
then that's okay. I don't know that we feel good that he came up on our patio and our porch and took it. But you somehow have to. You can't carry that burden. It's just not worth it. Forgive, justify, move on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole nother bigger topic for us, as to why people are falling out of what we would consider normal life with a home and a family and such, and find themselves homeless. But assuming that that's it, maybe he just needed some Christmas presents or something.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? but he did wear the clothing. But those kinds of things. So maybe in the next week, ponder your selflessness, and when you feel like you're being asked to do more than you're comfortable doing, where are your boundaries? What does a selfless act feel like to you? And when you are moved to be selfless and help others, even anonymously, what does that do for you? What does that do for your spirit, for your feeling of isolation or loneliness? And I think a lot of people who are out of work start to feel like they have no value. So perhaps those type of things can help restore your confidence that of course you have value and you're needed in this world and you're here for a reason, and to find some way, shape, or form to uh, to to really draw that in and let it lift your own heart. And when our own heart's lifted, guess what? We have more to give.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely, absolutely. And I think as we get ready to close, with the COVID-19, of course, I'm invested in this, but the hospitals are overflowing. The doctors and nurses are working uh, overtime, and they're also under a tremendous emotional pressure
Mm,
with what they're facing on a day-to-day basis. They're there because they're called to service.
yes.
They've when you become a healthcare worker, you kind of internally know that this may be required at some point in time, and you go without hesitation and do the work.
Right.
But it doesn't hurt to have somebody acknowledge that that's happening. So acknowledge your healthcare workers. This is more than just a little flu. This is a full out pandemic, and the costs, both emotional for the healthcare workers and physically for the healthcare workers, is a lot.
Well,
So appreciate what they're doing.
too many of them have been sick and have died. So, the healthcare workers that I've spoken to, the gift that they would love the most this Christmas and this year is for people to stay home and wear their masks when they're out in public. That protects them, because the fewer people they have coming into the hospital, the better care they can provide to the people who are there, and the safer they're going to feel. So, right now we're just starting the vaccine, but it's going to take a couple of months for the vaccine to really kick in for people.
Yeah, and chocolate chip cookies.
And chocolate chip cookies, yes. Always chocolate chip cookies.
We feel a little helpless with this pandemic because it does take an effort, and it is just having its way, and we'll get through it. But it won't hurt to acknowledge that these people are working very hard. So do something. When we had our fires, we had our banners out for our first responders. This is no different. I think we're over 2,000 healthcare workers have passed during this pandemic, and
It's almost 3,000.
and so that's service to the max, and selfless act, and they should be acknowledged for that, for sure.
Yes.
So I'm going to do that tomorrow somehow.
Okay.
We'll figure something out.
All right. So have a wonderful Christmas. Stay home. Be safe. Zoom with your family if you can't be together. This is, and I'll say it each week. Sometimes we do what we have to do so we can get to do what we want to do later. And these are sacrifices we're all making, but it's for the betterment of a whole, which is humanity. So take care of yourselves. Be safe. Wear your masks, please. I mean, Mark works 10 to 12 hours a day with an N95 mask on. He comes home with lines in his head and his face, a little sore on his nose. If physicians and nurses can do this for 10, 12 hours straight shifts, we can do it for 20 minutes when we have to run into the grocery store. Honestly, really, we can do it.
Yeah. Show of respect.
Yes.
All right.
That's it. And if you have to turn it into a selfless act, by all means, turn it into a selfless act. All right. All right. Have great, safe holidays, and we'll see you next Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And we'll have, I have a topic for next Monday, what we're going to talk about. Let's see. I have it here. Where'd it go? We're going to do a 2020 autopsy. How's that going to go?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. What did we learn? How did we grow?
A lot of good things happened in 2020.
Yeah. So we're gonna do an autopsy next week on 2020. So think about that for this week and enjoy your holidays. Be safe. We care about you. We're grateful to you for showing up here with us tonight. Namaste. Or, we have to remember, every day you wake up, you get to decide whether you're a warning or an example. Which are you?
Yeah.
You are my example.
Now let's be examples.
Okay. I know sometimes I'm a warning, but we'll talk about that another one. All right. All right. Take care. We'll see you next time.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Love you much. Bye-bye.
And okay. All right. Thanks, Jean, for popping in. It was great to see you, and whoever else is here. If you haven't popped in, thank you. And see, we're going to share. Okay.
And that.
And we'll see you next week. Bye.
It's hard to. It's so